So Matt, if I was at my local library and I was trying to find a good book on hacking, what do you recommend?
Well, I think your local library probably isn't as well stocked with hacking books as my personal library. But this one I think is a great starter book. This is No Tech Hacking by Johnny Long. It actually came out in 2008. And I remember when I first started my career, this was at the top of my list. And it's only till this year that I found the time to sit down and read it. And I like it with the caveat that I think if I read it at the very beginning of my career, I'd be much more excited about its content. And that's not to diss anything inside the cover, but I feel like the stuff that's in there is better suited for a beginner level. And the thrust of the book is really talking about all the stuff that you can do with a very minimal amount of technical knowledge that is valuable in offensive security. So things like social engineering, which is really more about understanding people than it is about understanding technology. Lockpicking, which is more of a physical thing. They talk about open source intelligence collection long before that was a phrase. This is things about, keeping an eye. If you want to surveil or a building because you're on a red team and you want to figure out who works at the building, what hours they keep, how to get in. Things like keeping an eye out for badges that indicate that this person works here, and maybe even more than that they have a certain level of access. I mean, to me, it may seem a little obvious right now, but I remember the first time that I read this stuff, it was kind of mind-blowing. So it's got a lot of pictures and diagrams, which makes it a quick read, and it's a fairly short book as well, but it's an entertaining one. Okay. So I really enjoyed reading this book. Like I said, I wish I'd read it earlier.
Does it hold up with sort of the time gap between when it was written and now?
So it's been 10 years, and if they were to, if Johnny and the people who contributed to this wanted to make an updated version, they could probably double the length of it. There's a section on Google hacking, and Google hacking was like the...
I was going to ask if they talk, because I mean, that's Johnny's famous for is his Google hacking.
Yep,
right?
The Google hacking database was basically his brainchild. So there's a whole section in there, and I found myself taking some notes and thinking, wow, I wonder how many of these devices are still out in Google somewhere. But the whole idea is simply just finding phrases that might show up on a web interface for a device, and just putting them into Google, see if they're indexed, see what kind of weird devices you can find. I think if it was written today, and maybe it would have started off with an introduction to Shodan, finding devices that way, but which gives you much more of a rich data set to work with, and not just things that Google would have indexed. There might be more information in here about looking in social media. Again, this is 10 years ago. This is before companies like Facebook and Instagram were big powerhouses. I think it's great. I think if I were in college, maybe even high school, and I wanted to get somebody excited about, you can learn this sort of stuff, you can get into cybersecurity without having to go to an engineering school, I would give them a copy of this book and I'd say, take a look at it. And if this stuff gets you excited, maybe you want to consider a career. But even if you're not going to go into cybersecurity, you should know these following things are possible and these are the steps you can take. There's a section at the end that's how to defend yourself against no-tech hacking, which is the phrase he uses for all the techniques in the book. I would maybe hand that as a pamphlet to most people and say, these are the things you want to know. Things like you leave your building, you take your badge and you put it in your pocket. The little things that may seem innocuous, but they take 2 seconds to do, and they can help protect you and your company against these sorts of attacks. That's the thing I would give to most people who are like intro to maybe I want to learn about cybersecurity, or even like intro to computer ethics course. That might be something you'd throw into there.
Yeah, because it's kind of like how we always try to, wrap up a segment with, how do you protect yourself, or what should you take away? You're right, just the takeaways that a new college student or somebody new to this field, it's good to have a section that says, okay, what do you need to do to protect yourself? So,
and I think that's really important too, because a lot of it is like, oh my gosh, this is exciting and scary in a way because it's so simple to do some of these things. But it's always good to have this is how you would fix it, or this is how you'd at least minimize the risk of some of these techniques.
Well, cool. I'm always impressed that you're able to bring this level of insight to the show. It's really it's a treat for our viewers. So thanks, man.
Well, don't believe me. Get a copy at your local library.